Well, good afternoon, everyone. Michael, soothing here. Thought we would look at some classic vinyl record albums from the 70s and 80s that I have had in my possession since that time. Vinyl's made a big comeback, and my collection may be a little bit strange in that, well, it's a lot of stuff you've heard of, but might be a mix that you don't expect. Most of my albums are already gone, sold off. People are into vinyl now because you got a nice big package. You know, an MP3 is kind of boring because you don't get anything with it but the music, and that's very compressed and clipped. So what are some of the albums I listened to as a youth when I was a rebellious bad boy? How about Eddie Van Halen, one of the best lead guitarists to ever wield a Fender guitar, if that's what he played, I can't remember. 1984, they even tell you when it was made, right? Let's see what was on here. He's got a photo where he's trying to look like an angel there, but I think that's just a little bit of a play on it. Let's take a peek. Does this have Hot for Teacher on it? All my albums pretty much have their original slip covers and are in perfect condition after all these decades. See if I show you the surface. I never touch the surface. I always handle it. I'm a little shaky today. It's the chemo. I always handle it by the edges or something, right? So this has Van Halen. It's got the song 1984. It's got Jump, which is one of their all-time great classics. The label is Warner Brothers, as you can see. Maybe what I need to do is reorient the camera and show you this face down. You point it down instead of trying to do it this way, since my nerves are a little bit jumpy today. Does this say 1984 in Roman numerals? You tell me. I don't know. I don't feel like computing it right now. I'm going to reorient the camera and show you these from a look-down perspective, if I can be so bold as to change things around a little bit here. Why am I shaky? Is it the cups of coffee? That must be it. I had a lot of coffee today. Just one moment. Now, of course, I can't go into too much detail about these albums because I have quite a few to get through. And this would go 3 hours if I did as much yakking as... But notice here, quite cleverly, running with the pack. Some people miss on a photo like this. You've got the alpha wolf, the mama wolf, baby wolves, and, you know, the lead singer of the band here. So you have to look close at the artwork. Running with the Pack is one of the songs on this album. Notice the guys are sitting around, I don't know what, smoking dope because they're being a bad influence on each other and watching old Bugs Bunny cartoons right there. This was a TV cart. Back in the old days when they made this, you had TV carts with TVs sitting on them, antenna ears. And this has some interesting tunes. I remember listening to this album after I had moved it to cassette while I was driving out on a business trip long, long ago, going out to China Lake, California, to take special training at the Naval Warfare Weapons Center there. But this has some great tunes on it. Live for the Music was a really great classic, and Simple Man was fantastic. All right, do right by your woman goes without saying, right? Uh-oh, I can see myself in this album. We better move along. The interesting thing about these records is that they bring back memories from that time as soon as you listen to it. You can remember scenes from your youth, the time and place. What do you suppose they were doing there, that monolith? Who's Next? A great album by The Who, and I think one of the classic tunes of all time from the progressive classic rock era would be Baba O'Reilly. You know, Teenage Wasteland, things like that. The song is over. Many tunes from this time, by the way, it pops into my head, ended up creating memes that found their way into the pop culture from a lyric of a song, and some of those memes still survive today. For example, Baba O'Reilly, the final line of that song, which is a great tune, by the way, innovative use of the Moog synthesizer that was coming into play at that time. The final line is, "Meet the new boss, same as the old boss." I've seen it used in movies and TV shows since then. Song is Getting in Tune is a good tune. Won't Get Fooled Again. Oh, I'm sorry. Not Baba O'Reilly. The Meet the New Boss, same as the old boss, is from Won't Get Fooled Again. It's a very long song, 8 minutes and 31 seconds. I used to play these on an upscale turntable with a very... this got put away wrong. I'm going to blame one of you because I would never do this. My fingers are on the label under here, not on the album. But you'll notice the label is Decca. And we need to put this back properly in its paper protective slipcover, the way it's supposed to be done. I can't believe someone put it back wrong. Somebody else must have listened to this. I can't take responsibility. Anyway, yeah, these were played on an upscale turntable with just the diamond stylus itself. The elliptical stylus cost something like $150, which in today's money would be something like $500, right? My whole stereo setup, big HPM 300s, I think they were called, my speakers, Pioneer, TIAC cassette deck that I would record all these albums on to play in my car, you know, trying to remember, my preamp and my amplifier were both also Pioneer, high power stuff. I can't believe I was an audiophile then. When you're older, you can't hear the frequency range you heard when you were young, but all these vinyl LPs have a dynamic range far, far superior to an MP3 file, which are highly compressed, most of them that you hear. Also more dynamic range even than a CD. You know, these things would catch all the harmonics and subharmonics going all the way up to, 18 or 20,000 hertz. CCR, Creedence Clearwater Revival. One of my, they're simple compositions, but so excellent to hear. Each band had their own very distinct sound. Let's see what one of their good tunes are. Bad Moon Rising, great song. Lodi, I used to drive through Lodi all the time. They have a song called Oh No, Stuck in Lodi Again, probably from when they were doing low-cost gigs before they became a big, well-known band. Yeah, CCR, Creedence Clearwater. Of course, in the 70s, I bought all the Beatles albums. Most successful and in many ways most innovative band of all time. I say innovative because even though their music was almost all pop rock, they had 100 different styles, and they were innovators in many, many styles, incorporating orchestral pieces and everything into their music. Yellow Submarine was such a groundbreaking album. And look at the 1960s artwork of the day, right? They made a movie called Yellow Submarine, by the way, animated, and there's memes from this that still exist in artwork today. They even have a whole story about the blue meanies and, all the other things happening in the land of, let's see here, what was the land called? I can't remember. Original film music composed and orchestrated by George Martin, one of their primary producers for many years. Pepperland, there it is, Pepperland, where the Sgt. Pepper's Band come from. Some of these tunes on side 2 are just strictly orchestral pieces with no lyrics sung, which is interesting. These were all George Martin, you can see. Whereas side 1 had the songs the Beatles were singing, Yellow Submarine being the most famous, along with All You Need Is Love, of course. Another famous tune. I could do an entire ASMR video on an album like this, and I probably should. Look how old this is. When you had albums in the 1960s or very early 1970s, they actually would have to write on here stereo, because a lot of albums were still mono. They weren't even stereo. It says playable on stereo and mono phonographs, just so people wouldn't be confused, right? And they would think, oh, it's stereo. I can't play it on my mono record player, or vice versa. But of course, that was one of the myths of the day. Dig the artwork, right? Let's look at it. How long am I going to go with this particular? I don't think we're even going to get 1/10 of the way, and I'm not doing justice to these albums. Really. Abbey Road, the famous album. This may be a bit of a repeat from my earlier video that I did about my vinyl LP collection. I don't remember what was on that one, so forgive me if I'm repeating myself. But Abbey Road is one of the many albums where they claim there's clues that Paul McCartney is dead and had been replaced by a stand-in. And one of those many bogus clues is that he's barefoot, Paul is, whereas Harrison and Ringo Starr and John Lennon all have shoes on, right? Why being barefoot means you're dead, I do not know. But again, many classic songs of the day, some of which were styles not heard before. Come Together is a great tune from the time. Sun King. Here Comes the Sun, the George Harrison song. Octopus's Garden. And I Want You. She's So Heavy. And by that, they don't mean she weighs a lot. Okay, so don't let that confuse you. Of course, no music collection of this day would be complete without something by the Doors, right? I used to have more of their albums. So this is only one. But I don't know where all of them have gone. Sold, I think, some of them. If you ever watch films that capture this era, they always have tunes from the Doors in them, like Vietnam War era films like Platoon will always have something from the Doors. Or what's the other classic? Apocalypse Now, right? Well, of course, this is when I was in school, but Light My Fire was a big tune of the day. It hit the top of the charts. People Are Strange was a great song. And The Crystal Ship. Really, most of these are classics. Hello, I Love You was a classic Doors tune. Wild Child, you know. Do they have the year on here? The label is Elektra. Let me make sure as we go through these that somebody put them all back properly. Yes, this one was put back properly in its slipcover. I hope this noise is not too annoying. Sliding it in and out. We wouldn't want that to annoy anyone. All right. Then, of course, you have Jimi Hendrix. And this may be his most famous album, with, of course, the psychedelic early 70s artwork and, the type of graphic they would do for the lettering, the kind of fonts they would use. This was the psychedelic era. Some of these albums came with a plastic slipcover. Are You Experienced? It's a slightly suggestive tune. Of course, Jimi Hendrix was talking about multiple things in this song, one of which I think was drugs, unfortunately. Like many people of his day, many rock and roll stars or rock stars, he died prematurely of either drugs or a plane crash. That's how most of them did. If you want to look at the surface of this, you'll see there's no dings or scratches or dust. I would maintain them perfectly, and I would use a special device called a disc washer, which you could use to keep the surface pristine before you played the album, so that it wouldn't pick up any dust, and wouldn't have any dust ground into the groove, which would affect the sounds later. You don't want pop, snackle, quap on your album. Or is that snap, crackle, and pop? We used to say pop, snackle, quap. This is going to be a little bit noisy, so I'll hold it way over here. When I slide it back in, I really need to convert all of these albums into digital format. I have a disc player that I purchased for that very purpose, but I'm too lazy to go through and do it. Here we have one of the great albums by Boston. They have a great song. What was it called? I think it's on this album, where they have that lyric about cool the engines, slow this rocket down. Must be on this album, since you see the space travel theme there. Boston was such a perfectionist band that they would take a couple of years to produce an album sometimes. They wanted all of it to be exactly per a specific vision of their music. The story of a journey into life's third stage, it says. Like stage 3 of a rocket ship, right? Amanda was the first song on the album, the first written, the ringing. See all the extras they would give you back then? You didn't just buy a song file produced by somebody's computer and churned out as junk sugar pop by Taylor Swift. You know, all those songs are now produced by algorithms, not people, all those pop songs. Instead, you had actual masterpieces of music composition done by actual band members who actually played the music as well and performed it. And the Harley outside agrees with me, all right? So, they have a whole story behind each song, a whole story behind the album. For the technically curious, this was an unusual recording project. How many studios could you walk into and find the guitarist punching the tape deck controls with his right foot while blasting power chords out of an amplifier the size of a peanut butter sandwich? And they go on and talk about how many projects could you listen to in 1980, 81, 83, 84, 85, and find someone still working on the same song years later. So they're talking about how long it took them to produce this album. Sticky tape. Do you know that when some recording tape sits for a long time it gets sticky? Neither did I. How would you feel if you took your 4-year-old one-of-a-kind mix of Cool the Engines with no safety copy, and halfway through the song the reels stop dead with a bang because your tape has become glued to the guides and must be peeled off the playback head like adhesive tape? Uh-oh. No synthesizers in this music. They found a way to do all their sounds naturally with organ and such, and if you've ever heard this album, you would agree that it's amazing. And of course, I like the space theme, being that rocket science was my career. Oh, here they say, remember the preface I gave you on this? It took nearly 6 years to conceive and complete this album. No orchestral instruments or synthesizers were used to create the sounds. Each individual piece of music relates a human experience, and together they tell the story of a journey into life's third stage. Symbolism was on the music. You know, these aren't even dusty, these albums, because I keep them in a big plastic storage container with a cover. Here's an album by Paul McCartney, his second solo album, I believe, after the breakup of the Beatles. He and John Lennon didn't get along so well, so Lennon made an album where on Lennon's album cover after this came out, Lennon is holding the ears of a pig instead of, a ram. So, there was some great tunes on here, though. Too Many People. Sometimes that's the way I feel, although it's not so bad now with social distancing. Too Many People. This is the album where you can hear Linda McCartney do some of the most off-key singing you've ever heard on any formally produced record album that hit the top of the charts. But of course, Paul loved Linda, so he would squeeze her in, even though she might have had the worst ability to carry a tune of anyone in history. There she is, recording with Paul. There she is, kicking back. Paul is, of course, a great. Heart of the Country was a good tune. Monkberry Moon Delight was a great tune. But we digress. Are these two Beatles mating? I think that has some kind of symbolism. Or one Beatle is doing something to another Beatle, since Paul was one of the Beatles, and this is after their breakup. Don't you think there might be a little bit of symbolism in there somewhere? I think so. Wait, is this properly in its slipcover? It is. See? It's in its paper slipcover. The way it's supposed to be. That's good. This is one of the few albums I did not buy brand new, because when it came out, I was too young and I had no job. So I couldn't buy it brand new. I had to wait until I could buy it used. So I would look at the used record shop for the best quality copy I could find. It originally came out in mono, and see, now they re-released it. New, improved, full dimensional stereo. That shows how old this particular collection of songs is. But it's got some very famous Beatle tunes. Oh, and again, they made a movie called Help, based on the music in this album. Ticket to Ride was a great tune. You're Gonna Lose That Girl. These are all actually good. The Night Before. They just evoke something when you listen to them. Here's some cuts from the movie. You can see, again, all the extras you would get in these albums back then. It's an established fact. Whatever the Beatles do, they do it big. Take their latest epic film, Help. Okay, anyway, I could read you the whole story, but then we would never get through the album collection. And so maybe we'll come back in the future and do, say, ASMR on just Beatle albums. ASMR on just, some other band. Emerson, Lake and Palmer or something like that, right? Look how their styles evolved. You can't even recognize them on the Meet the Beatles album. VJ, introducing the Beatles. Introducing the Beatles. Again, I had to buy this used. England's #1 vocal group. What old tunes do they have on here? Misery, I Saw Her Standing There, Love Me Do, Twist and Shout, Do You Want to Know a Secret? Really great early songs of the day. Look at those haircuts. See how much they changed during their era, their very long success story tunes. Here's Paul McCartney's first solo album, All These Cherries. What's the title? Just called McCartney. It's kind of well worn because I played it a lot way back in the 70s. That Would Be Something is a great tune. Maybe I'm Amazed is probably the best song on this album. And it's put out, as you can see, by Apple Records, Apple record label. And if we look at the slipcover, if we look at the label, pull this out, lots of personal photos in here. There's the Paul. He's called Sir Paul now because the Queen gave him knighthood. Oh no, I'm gonna have to check all my albums. Another one where it was put back wrong. The good thing I'm checking these because they need to be put back correctly. It's, as you can see, their more recent works were on the Apple label right there. But the surface of this does still look pristine, in spite of it being put back incorrectly in its slipcover. I think I just left a thumbprint there, though, of dust. Now I'm going to have to go find a Kleenex. Hold on. I'm going to have to find a Kleenex that has virtually no scratching, you know, the very soft type. I'm going to have to blow on it and then wipe it very, very gently to get the dust of that thumbprint off of there. Otherwise, I won't be able to sleep tonight. Okay, now we'll put it carefully back in its original slipcover that's actually yellowed with age. As you can see, a collector won't mind that this was yellowed with age because they'll know that it's authentic and not something that's been produced as a reproduction for today's market. Some of these albums are actually worth some money now. People are really starting to collect these. So let's get this back where it goes. Whoops. Now that we've properly protected it, put it back in its original paper sleeve. Life is not always a bowl of cherries, is it? See, I feel sad about all these cherries because I wouldn't be able to eat them once they're all out here on whatever this is. So these poor cherries probably never got eaten. All right, what's next? My collection of albums goes all the way back to the folk song era. Simon and Garfunkel, who wrote a lot of great folk songs of the day. Sounds of Silence being a very famous one, and some of their song lyrics became memes in the popular culture. Yeah, I can't think of one off the top of my head, but I know that some did. Check the slipcover here. Oh no, another one. This is unbelievable to me. I'm gonna have to go through, and I saw a little piece of dust. So we're gonna put this back. Man, was it me that did this? If so, I need to thoroughly punish and chastise myself because I was always so careful about this kind of thing. You know what I think happened? think I know what happened, but I'm not gonna say. Let's just say someone who was interested in my collection, who will remain nameless, went through and was pulling these and checking them out once. Pablo Cruz. Okay. Sometimes I like a variety. We get some bluesy rock or some Latin flavor rock, different things like that. Some of the slip covers would have artwork or something on them. This is a nice, perfect condition. I go to Rio. That's side 2. What's side 1? Worlds Away. Family Man. I think my favorite Pablo Cruz song is 0 to 60 in 5. Great tune. Check it out sometime if it's on YouTube. Of course, I like even jazz if it's good. So I used to listen to David Sanborn, but one of the best jazz artists is Grover Washington Jr. Alright, so it's got some kind of medallion here. What is that? I can't tell. Can you tell what his medallion? Let's see. I don't know what it is. But anyway. Inside Moves, Dawn Song, Secret Sounds, various things. Well, we've been going more than a half hour. We're not even remotely close to getting through these albums. Maybe I should do 2. I need a sip of water. Problem with doing 2 videos is that you never watch. Excuse me, everyone. Joanne was outside gardening before that interruption. And so she wanted to ask me how to pronounce a certain word in the English language. And I think rather than editing her out, I'm going to leave her in my video because you know I like to make you smile now and then. All right, here we have quite a great classic prog rock, progressive rock album from Emerson, Lake and Palmer, which I think was my favorite progressive rock band. Women don't like them much, but in this era, guys appreciated them because of their musical excellence. One of the best, if not the best, rock band keyboardists of all time, composers of all time, drummers of all time, and the most innovative use of the Moog synthesizer and other sounds, and great in concert as well as recorded. I think the best concert I ever saw was Emerson, Lake and Palmer at the Cow Palace in San Francisco. Here they have a photograph, or not a photograph, what am I saying? An art piece to represent each of the songs on this album. The Great Gates of Kiev here. Kiev over here. Promenade, which was not an original song, it was their interpretation of a song. But many of these, almost all of them, are originals. The Curse of Baba Yaga, The Hut of Baba Yaga, The Old Castle, The Gnome, The Sage. Let's check The Great Gate. Oh, the ones on the back are all blank. Let's double check. I know I would never treat my Emerson, Lake and Palmer albums with anything other than a great deal of dignity, and sure enough, This one is properly inserted into its protective cover. I can't even find the opening. Here it is. And if you peek inside, you'll see that although it was played many times, it's in great, essentially perfect condition. And it says, original master recording. This is not a copy of a copy. It's off the original master tapes. Some albums, depending on how picky the artist is, would be pressed on virgin vinyl, on the best equipment, from the best master tapes, and to make sure they had the highest possible fidelity and quality. Okay, you're gonna say, what? You listened to that sugary pop by ABBA back then? And the answer to that is, yes, indeed I did. Swedish pop rock band ABBA. And I'll tell you why. They're kind of a different version of the Moody Blues, not in style whatsoever, but in the way that they can evoke certain feelings in you about romance and the cultural era in which you live, social interaction. And they had a unique ability to do that with their music. And of course, they have some great songs like Man in the Middle. Let's see, what would be my favorites on here? Well, Mamma Mia was, of course, made into a musical twice now, at least. Both Broadway stage and movie versions. 2 movie versions that I'm aware of. So that gives you an idea of how much influence their music had in the world. It had a lot. But they were really great because a lot of their music, when it came to romance and stuff, was from their own life experience. Since they were married, 2 of them fell in love and got married to each other. You know, Benny and, what are their names again? I'm going to have to remember who's who. Now I've forgotten their names. I'm going to have to look on here and see. It's Benny Anderson and Jorn Ulvaeus, and I'm sure I'm pronouncing it wrong. And then, why don't they have the 2 women on here with their great harmonies? I can't believe I've forgotten their names because I always remember them. But anyway, look here, 1979. I'm going to have to look on their other album now because I've gotten too curious to let that pass. And the way they are pronounced, their names are pronounced, is a bit different than what we would pronounce it. In the English language, we always do it wrong. Okay, I remember the blonde's name is it's spelled in English like Agnetha, but in Swedish you say something like Agneta. Okay, and then I don't remember her name. Everyone just remembers the blonde, right? For some reason. One of you who's an ABBA fan is going to tell me the name of the other one, because as always, I'm too lazy to look it up. The Super Trouper album is probably their best work. And a song like The Winner Takes It All is a song taken from their own life experience, because Benny and Agneta were married and then broke up, And this song, the song lyrics are about that very breakup. And she sings it with genuine emotion. And so when you listen to it, look it up on YouTube and take a listen. The Winner Takes It All, and you'll see what I'm talking about. And other songs invoke certain emotions of romance if you're in that mood. Andante, Andante, for example, or Lay All Your Love on Me is a very good tune from side B. It's not sugary popish type song like you might think. It actually can draw out emotion. So, yeah, I listened to some of their stuff. Emerson, Lake and Palmer, the Works album. Just jet black here, see? There's Keith Emerson on the piano. As I said, one of the all-time best keyboardists. Played everything like you wouldn't believe. He somehow managed to play, a 3-row of keys organ, a piano, a xylophone, and 6 other keyboard instruments simultaneously. I don't know how he did it. He must have had 8 hands. But anyway, this is a double album. They really gave us our money's worth. And Carl Palmer there. You can look up one of his drum solos on YouTube. One of the best drummers of all time, definitely. Let's see, what C'est La Vie is a great tune. Pirates. Fanfare for the Common Man is on here, I believe. Is that on this one? Tank. Piano Concerto. I think Fanfare for the Common Man is on this album. And, of course, you hear that sometimes on sports, for sports-themed stuff. This has it's on side 4 of these 2 albums. Fanfare for the Common Man. And you hear their version played at the beginning of sports events sometimes, that dun dun dun. Okay, I can't sing right now, sorry. Simon and Garfunkel, another old folk song album. Scarborough Fair, Canticle. That's 2 songs woven together as one. 2 different songs. Very interesting how they did it. See, this came out in stereo and mono. That's how old this album is. I'll never get through it all, guys. Cat Stevens made some great sort of folk rock songs and then went crazy and became a bizarro Islamist in the end. But made some great songs in the meantime. Peace Train was a fantastic tune. Morning Has Broken is a great song. I think he has a song that people use at weddings sometimes. But this one was called Teaser and the Fire Cat, this album. Cat Stevens. What else do we have here? Another Beatle album. This is when they first started getting away from the really simple stuff that they began with. The really simple love tunes on Meet the Beatles and Introducing the Beatles and Help and all that. Rubber Soul started to get a little more advanced as they were working their way into new styles. Michelle is a good one. John and George. Michel, my belle, son de mon qui bon très bien. Can't sing on key right now, guys. Sorry. Yeah, In My Life. Rubber Salt's good, although it's mostly kind of love songs. Revolver is the album where they really started. Here's, Magical Mystery Tour was really a groundbreaking album of its day. 1970s, of course. Very early 1970s, I think. Around 1970 itself, maybe even late 60s. Here we are. 1967. So yeah, this was some of their earliest work. I keep forgetting, most of the Beatles stuff was late 60s, not early 70s. They were already breaking up by the broken up by 74 or something like that. So I'm a little off on my timetable. Magical Mystery Tour was a pretty good song. I Am the Walrus. Oh, did this have more Paul is Dead clues in it? Yeah, see, I think they said, Paul's the one in black, right? Because he's, Let's see here. Another Pablo Cruz album. Yeah, this is the one that has 0 to 60 in 5. This album, Lifeline. So that's pretty good. Carly Simon, the No Secrets album. There are certain elements of this photograph that will take you to the time, that era in time. I won't mention what they are, but there's more than one element in this photo that gives you the styles of the day. And Carly Simon was a great vocalist. She got married to James Taylor for a time, but I suspect she had a very large ego, given the interviews I recall of her from that day. She wrote, does this have the You're So Vain on it? You're So Vain. It's You're So Vain, by the way. She got, Mick Jagger from the Rolling Stones to do a cameo vocal appearance on that song. So if you should listen to it on YouTube, someplace, you'll hear his voice doing the backup vocals, which is very interesting to me. Yeah, she married folk rock singer James Taylor and then promptly dumped him after not too long. I think she thought she was a little too good for him and for the rest of the world, but she made some great stuff as a female vocalist, nonetheless. Got some more old folk stuff, Peter, Paul, and Mary, Late Again, because I think sometimes they didn't make it to gigs on time. I saw him not too long ago doing a solo gig with a Christian artist that I know about named John Fisher. And at a small venue we went and saw them, and he's still got it. He's good. They wrote on the blackboard 100 times, I will not be late again. Here's a great tune, I Shall Be Released. Was that written by? It was written by a famous songwriter, but I forget who. You'd have to look that one up. It's about a guy in jail who wants to be released, but could also be symbolic of somebody living a difficult life who's waiting for a better afterlife. And it was sung by others too, like Joan Baez. All right. I don't know how my Hey Jude album got so beat up, but it's more beat up than my others. Okay, here's my Hey Jude. And you can see how much the Beatles changed during the course of their career. From that funny photo we had earlier, with all the short haircuts and the like 1962 vintage or something. Hey Jude, is this their final album together? Or was it the double wide? I can't remember. Anyway, we're getting close to their final album together with this one, if not being the final album as a band. Produced by George Martin, once again on the Apple label. And they did a little impromptu concert out on the roof of their recording studio or something in London, and people came out onto other buildings to watch. It's kind of an interesting PR stunt. You could probably find that on YouTube if you look. Santa Cruz Music Center. That's why it's so beat up. Oh no, it was brand new when I bought it, because that was the price of a brand new album. $4.98. See there? That would have been the price of a regular price, $5.98. Their price, $4.98. So I bought this one new, but it must have seen a lot of use. It just looks more beat up than the other ones. And this has the fast version of Revolution on it. Oh yeah. I think the double white came after this one, but I don't remember. Lady Madonna is a famous song, of course. Not all of the songs on here were great tunes, in my opinion, but there were a couple really good ones. Billy Joel. Sort of a New York ballad singer, right? I should have closed the windows so that we would block the car sounds. Billy Joel made some great stuff, pop songs. The Stranger, Scenes from an Italian Restaurant. I think one of the best songs he's ever done is She's Always a Woman. Take a listen to it sometime, and you'll see why I think that's a great tune. How about, this is John Lennon's first solo album. This was before the Imagine album. John Lennon and the Plastic Ono Band on the Apple label. This is where he does his Primal Scream song, Mother, right? He was doing weird, like the Beatles were always getting into something new, right? He was into that weird primal therapy thing. This is when they started packaging the albums in better protective plastic sleeves. Oh, hold on. Working Class Hero's pretty good. But the album is kind of cynical, just like John himself. Nonetheless, it's evocative, and it can bring back memories of the day. Here's a Or was it the Let It Be album when they did the concert on the roof? I think it was Let It Be. Yeah, it was tunes from Let It Be. See all the extras you would get, and they would have, these albums would come with like brochures inside. What do you call it? Like a program sometimes that would have extra information. I don't know what that cutout means. I used to know. It meant something like you can't buy it and resell it. I don't know. One of you knows what that means, and you can tell me in comments. Here's their album from 1965. I'm a Loser. That was a good tune that we can all relate to. Ha ha. I Feel Fine is great. I'll Follow the Sun. It's a really great tune. Are we in our slipcover? Properly nestled like a baby in a blanket? Yes, we are. Some said it couldn't really be happening. It was just publicity, and the fabulous Beatles proved them wrong. Here's some of their really early albums. The Beatles Story, the Beatles' second album, Meet the Beatles, Something New. I hear someone at the door. Can you hold on for a moment? That was just Joanne again, having an allergy fit outside, needing some tissue. I'm going to wrap things up because we've been going so long. We got the Beatles double wide album. It's got the slow version and the fast version of Revolution on it. Revolution 1 and Revolution 9. And all kinds of other great tunes. Blackbird. Yeah. But we have to wrap things up, so I'm going to have to fail to go through all of the other stuff. Here's a rock opera by The Who called Tommy, which was also made into a sort of rock opera film. And this is probably the best rock opera of all time, although there weren't many rock operas made, right? And of course, the signature song is Pinball Wizard. Amazing stuff. Somewhat simple in composition, but still very gripping, and with the whole storyline. And when you listen to the whole thing and see how it's woven together, it's quite an impressive work. Yeah, but anyway, I gotta wrap things up because we've been at this for an hour now, and I want to edit and be able to get this up for you before midnight. All right, take care, everyone. I hope you're doing well wherever you are, and that you'll be out of your prison soon, like all of us. Take care. Bye-bye. Oh, don't ASMR and walk into a pole. All right.